There is absolutely no reason to stop rowing that boat. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, talking Minnesota. The Gophers coming off their first loss of the season in Iowa City, take on Northwestern this week. We got Daniel House in the house, Skor North and Gopher Hole rep right there. Daniel, we appreciate you stopping by.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's one of those weeks now where you're trying to calm the fan base down. It's tough to win at Iowa, so it's all about how Minnesota bounces back this week at Northwestern.
You said it before we started to record. I saw the comments from PJ Fleck as well. So he wanted to keep it in perspective. Yes, we don't like losing football games. We wanted to be undefeated. Yes, this is a rivalry game. We knew it was going to be difficult. This is a tough place to play. We played a good football team. Yes, we did not want to lose this game. We're hurt by this loss, but everything's still right in front of us. Our championship goals have not changed. We still have everything right here for the taking.
It's all right there, and that's what the Gopher fans have been waiting for a very long time, is to have meaningful games in November like this. You look at the Iowa game, it's really interesting to me when I look at the advanced box score. So things like expected points added that talk about efficiency. The Gophers led in expected points added overall. They led in success rate, so play-by-play success rate. All the analytic categories, the Gophers were more successful than Iowa. So it's interesting that the mistakes that they made really made a difference. It was 3 or 4 plays in the ball game that made a big difference. The drop by Bateman on 2nd and 18, that maybe could have been a touchdown. Johnson on 4th and 4, the slant over the middle that he drops when it's 20-13, you're knocking on the door. Those red zone trips, they were not efficient there. They had to settle for field goals, and then they had the turnover on downs. So eliminate all those mistakes, and you're probably looking at a totally different game. And the fact that Minnesota got down early in such a big hole that they had to change their whole offensive philosophy and climb uphill the rest of the way. And credit Iowa for a fantastic scheme and being able to jump out to a quick lead.
Yeah, so the Hawkeyes win it 23-19, racing out to a 20-3 lead before the Gophers made a desperate rally to try to pull one out at Kinnick Stadium. Very difficult place to play. The Hawkeyes are wearing the all black, and considering their season has been lost in regards to championship aspirations, they were certainly there ready to go. And Vegas knew it as well as the rest of us as a 3-point favorite that this one was going to be tight and down to the wire. Before we move on to Northwestern and first the Tanner Morgan situation, just any nuances of the game against Iowa that come to mind? I watched the game, but in terms of your insight into Minnesota football, that was either a bit concerning going forward or something that, again, a nuance. You laid out the metrics, but anything else that stands out?
Well, the offense got behind, and that's the big thing that I keep coming back to. Iowa's pass rush was able to take over. You look at the elite group that they have up there. When you're able to just rush the passer all day long, A.J. Epinesa is a top defensive end prospect in the country, probably will be a first-round top 15 pick. Love what he did in that game. 9 pressures, 28% pass rush win rate, according to PFF. He had 2.5 sacks. That matchup against Sam Schluter wasn't great. Gophers are traditionally that 3-step drop, RPO, get the ball out quick. Then they had to go deeper drops in the pocket, longer developing routes to change their whole game plan. And then Iowa was able to stop the run. Defensively early on, Iowa did a nice job with that stretch zone scheme. When Minnesota was playing a little bit softer coverage, they were getting run out of gaps, and you have to be really disciplined to tackle well. And they caught them in some difficult matchups, the Gophers, when they were maybe playing a little bit more man coverage and trying to stack the box, help against the run. They'd come with some misdirection and just kind of get you in that toss game. They varied up what they were doing on the ground, and then when Minnesota wanted to man up, they took deep play action shots. I thought the Gophers were really, really conservative early on defensively. Nate Stanley was able to stand in the pocket and throw the ball all over, and they didn't really want to give up the big play. It just felt that way for a long time. And then in the second half, they clamped down. They played a lot better. They sent more pressure. They blitzed. They played more man coverage. I just saw a total shift in philosophy, and Nate Stanley wasn't as effective when he was getting blitzed. So Minnesota maybe made that adjustment just a little bit too late. And if they don't make those couple of mistakes like I talked about, the couple drops and things like that, the game might have looked differently, despite the fact that they got into a huge hole on the road against a really well-coached team.
All right, folks, you can hear the obvious insight and information in Minnesota football. So please join Daniel House at Skor North and also at Gopher Hole, covering the Gophers as they put on their championship stretch drive. Minnesota's coming up against Northwestern this week, and of course, then Wisconsin. Before we get to the Northwestern game, one lingering item that's rather hovering over the team is the status of Tanner Morgan. If you can update us on what you know at this point.
Well, it was on one of the last plays of the game. Minnesota got the ball back with just under 2 minutes left, going for the last drive to try to win the game. Morgan was sacked, took a big shot. It felt like it happened on first down because second down he was all confused pre-snap, and then he got sacked again. And PJ Fleck was just trying to get him to stay down on the field so that they could come out and take a look at him. He said after the game he was a little bit wobbly and woozy. Now we know he's in concussion protocol right now. PJ didn't give a lot of information. He said he's going to continue to evaluate his status as the week progresses. If Tanner Morgan's unable to play, they'll be relying on Jacob Clark and Cole Kramer, two true freshman quarterbacks that don't have a lot of experience. PJ Fleck didn't really give any insight into who the backup quarterback would be. He said he's going to take a look at them this week and determine which one that he wants. So who knows? Tanner could be prepared, ready to play, and but if not, they got to have those young guys ready to go at a road Big Ten game. Northwestern hasn't played well. Their offensive attack is extremely inefficient this year. But, hey, anytime you're going on the road in this conference, you've got to give it your best no matter who you're playing.
Yeah, so I'm scurrying to find the line on this game, and it's right about where I thought it was going to be. So Minnesota opened as a 7-point favorite on the road in Evanston. It has jumped to 13.5. So people have a ton of confidence in Northwestern's deficiencies on offense. So we're looking at, by just about any metric, one of the worst 5 offenses in college football this year. We knew that the Wildcats were going to down cycle this year after about a 15-1 run in Big Ten play over the course of the latter half of 2017 through 2018 when they made it all the way to the Big Ten championship game. Pat Fitzgerald has built a program that's almost sustainable year to year, but not quite. And they showed us that this year. And with the injuries at quarterback and losing some of their more dynamic players. And when I say dynamic, I put that in quotes in regards to the Northwestern level of dynamic playmakers that they've had in the past. It's just not a strength of this football team. It's just been a struggle to score against anybody, Daniel.
Yeah, second worst offense efficiency-wise, third worst in passing, ninth worst in rushing. The thing that worries me about this game is Northwestern's defense still plays very hard and disciplined. Pat Fitzgerald's group hasn't wavered in that area. They're a top 30 defense overall in efficiency. So specifically in the rushing defense side of things, that's what makes me nervous. If you have to start a backup quarterback, how does that shift your whole approach offensively? If you can't run the ball, you're going to be relying a lot on the quarterbacks to be able to make throws. And you're asking them to manage this game, not make mistakes, hit the open targets. You have some dynamic weapons at wide receiver. You might have to grind this game out. Hopefully they don't have to worry about that. Tanner Morgan's ready to go. But if he has any lingering effects, PJ Fleck's not going to put him out there. He's not the type of coach that's going to risk that. The health of the player is most important. So my guess is maybe they roll with Jacob Clark, the true freshman from Rockwall, Texas. He has a big arm. He got in action earlier this season, late in the game. That's my guess. His offense in high school was pretty similar to what Minnesota ran. So terminology-wise, it's pretty similar. But between him and Cole Kramer, it was pretty close in the spring. I thought both of them showed flashes. So PJ Fleck hinted at maybe seeing both of them if Tanner can't go. He didn't give much insight at all. He wants to keep that all close to his vest as they prepare for Northwestern.
Yeah, if you want a microcosm into Northwestern season, you look at the Wisconsin game, and this is what Northwestern football is all about from a good standpoint and a bad standpoint, is that they got completely dominated by Wisconsin, but they never let them without keeping them somewhat in the game. So the defense kept them in the game. They were at 24-3, but it was painful to watch them even try to complete a 4-yard pass. It was that bad offensively. They were just dominated, but they got themselves in position. They didn't let go of the football, didn't commit dumb penalties, played efficient enough to stay within 3 scores. Then they scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and Pat Fitzgerald inexplicably went for 2 points after 2 touchdowns. Otherwise, they would have been within a score, and they were right there with the ball to try to tie the game and possibly win the game when they were completely dominated statistically the entire game. So now they run up against Minnesota, and we've got a similar situation, though they're going to be at home for this one against the Gophers. So we're going to obviously have to track you down next week, Daniel, for the big matchup against Wisconsin. That should be a whole lot of fun. Would like to get your take on Rodney Smith's career, because this is a guy that's been around forever. He's taken hold of many of the top spots on the rushing list, the all-purpose yardage lists in Minnesota history. I know that he didn't have a great week last week or the week before because Penn State took away the rush actually 2 weeks ago, and obviously Iowa's stout in its front seven. But Rodney Smith and his career at Minnesota.
Yeah, Rodney has made a huge impact on the program. Coming back last year off the ACL tear early in the year, it was a long road back for Rodney. He's talked about all the people that have supported him and what he learned about himself during that process. I love Rodney's versatility. I mean, at the next level, I see him being a guy that you can use in the receiving game. You can flex him out in the slot. You can move him all over and use those receiving skills, which is something I think is possibly a wrinkle they could use down the stretch a little bit more. You see how he's able to fit when they've added this outside zone stretch scheme in. They've traditionally been a squad that loves the bread and butter inside zone. Kirk Schrocker runs that he ran at Western Michigan, brought it to Minnesota. It's just the basic play that they love to use. They've paired that up and complemented with outside zone and the stretch plays, things like that. And Rodney's vision and elusiveness has complemented that nicely. Rodney told us a few weeks back, 91% of his runs that are explosive came off of outside zone. So I see him being a guy with his vision and elusiveness, ability to make that first guy miss in the second level. He's a type of guy that could play at the next level because of his versatility as a third down back in a zone blocking system. I see him being a nice fit, and he's had a huge impact on the program. And they call him Grandpa around here because he's been within the program for such a long time.
Yeah, it seems like he and Shannon Brooks, because of injuries and so forth, it's not been consistent the entire time that they've been on campus. But from day one, they were the 1-2 punch, and it seems like that was like a decade ago that started.
It is, and now you got Mohamed Ibrahim, who kind of gets lost in the whole shuffle, being such a solid player for this team. Yards after contact, powerful runner. Last year, he was a big part of the team's success in those final games. Just some really excellent performances. And those three backs, Minnesota's done a really nice job of recruiting that position and taking what they had from the previous regime and adding even more talent to it in the future here with guys like Cam Wiley and Trey Potts, who will be future candidates to be very successful running backs.
All right, folks, Christmas is coming. Shop Amazon. Use the link in the description section below. It's the same shopping experience. Just use that to help us build the channel. Daniel House, Gopher Hole, Skor North, great place to be to check out his work right there. And please follow him right there. You can hear the obvious insight and information that he provides. Daniel, we appreciate you stopping by. Enjoy the ball game.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.